Namaste, and welcome to another edition of Live, Love, Engage. And I am delighted to have an awesome woman. She is a coach, and I'm going to tell you more about her in a minute, but she is up to some great things in the world. And I'll just give you a hint about really helping other women entrepreneurs and coaches. So I want to first off welcome Julie Foucht to Live, Love, Engage.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, well, I'm delighted to have you. And I almost said, welcome to the Art of Feminine Business, but that's your podcast.
we could do both.
There we go. Well, and that does give you a hint. That is one of the things that Julie does. And in fact, she graciously had me on her show a while back. But what she is up to in the world, for those of you listening and watching on YouTube, is she teaches female coaches, teachers, and healers who are frustrated with the traditional sales and marketing formulas out there, how to build six-figure businesses that actually honor their feminine essence. And her clients report having clearer vision of their divine purpose, greater passion for their work, and having the skills to attract perfect clients. And even the best one of all is to be well paid for their gifts, which is so important because I know in working with clients I've worked with, especially those who are, I think in particular, are involved in like healing modalities and things like that, that they're not necessarily being paid because they feel so heart-centered that they need to almost give their stuff away, which is not good. And we can have a whole conversation about that maybe later. But I thought what we would start off with today is for you to share with our audience just what prompted you to really start this, having more of this feminine emphasis, if you will, on your business. So what prompted? Because it was a change in how you were doing things, right?
Yeah, it was a huge change. Way back when the housing bubble burst, at that time I was working my coaching business full time, which meant I would have two clients and go, oh, I'm exhausted. I need to go shopping, right? And I was bringing in a couple $1,000s a month. Well, my husband's business was in the development industry. He's a planner, and the market crashed, and his last client decided rather than pay their fees, they would just leave town and do a bankruptcy in the state of California, which left us with, them owing us tens of thousands of dollars. And it kind of took his business down. So I needed to do something, right? My little part-time coaching practice. And I did what you do when you haven't paid your mortgage in months and you're rotating bills to like keep the electricity on and shopping at the discount food store. I unfroze a credit card and went and hired a coach, because I knew that if nothing changed, nothing would change. And she was great. I adore this woman. And she taught me the formulas, and she taught me how to drive. And she taught me that you don't do 2 hours of work and then go, I'm exhausted, right? She really taught me how to do business the masculine way. And I was doing well with that, but it was starting to feel like a drain, and I was starting to not feel as inspired. And I was on my way to my first six figures. It was like October. I was at like 93,000. I knew by end of December, I would hit six figures.
Sure.
So I joined a networking group for 6 and 7 figure earners to talk about the state of the industry. And then about a week after that, I was rear-ended at a stop sign by a big truck. I was in a little car and he hit me twice. And the second hit screwed up my back.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry.
So I couldn't do the mask, well, you know, if I listened better, maybe that wouldn't have had to happen. But I couldn't do the masculine way anymore, right? I couldn't work 12-hour days, 6 days a week. I couldn't push myself. I could get up, do a client call, and then go lay on ice. And then get up and go to the chiropractor and go lay on ice, right? And that old way of working just was no longer accessible to me. And what happened in those quiet spaces is I started to hear this voice say, there's a different way. There is a better way for women to do business. We need to bring this new way of doing business into the world. At the same time, I was walking into this networking group, hearing story after story of these women. And they would say things like, you know, I built a 6-figure business and got adrenal fatigue. I built a multi-6-figure business and got breast cancer. I built $1 million business. There's this one gal, she's fabulous. And she told me that she got home. She and her husband had built a multi-7-figure business. She was the face of the business. She got home from a speaking gig and couldn't get out of the car because her body was so exhausted. She spent the next 4 months in bed, right? And so I'm hearing story after story and women who are saying, I can't claim to be a 6-figure earner because I just put my business on hold. I'm not working my 7-figure business right now because I can't do it anymore. And that's when I started to have downloads. Now, I had always thought people would say, I'm having a download, and I'd go, stupid, pretentious, like you had a freaking idea until the downloads started. And I would be like, oh, that's brilliant. That did not come from my head, right? Like that's way beyond my wisdom. So I really started to listen to that. And I started to bring this new way of business into my business and started to teach it to my clients. And as I started to really listen to my highest self, tap into my divine record keepers, my divine guides, more and more doors opened. And my business jumped way past that 6 figures really easily. It was much easier than I had anticipated it would be when I was in the push, grind, force mode.
What would you say is the biggest difference between you've sort of been hinting a little bit about what the masculine is how that shows up and what it does, but what would you say, what are some of the key differences between the feminine and the masculine way?
So I think we need to understand, first of all, when I talk feminine and masculine, we all have feminine and masculine in us. And when I'm talking masculine, I'm talking the lower energy masculine. So lower energy masculine shows up as a bully. In that we push ourselves. We work beyond our limits. We give a little bit more than we should. We don't take time for ourselves. And it's very much a ramp up and push to a result, and then ramp up and push to the next result. And, I'll never forget hearing a 7-figure earner talk about their first $1 million launch and how proud he was that they had worked 17-hour days for 3 weeks, and his team had also worked that. And they had like 10 or 15 people on the team.
Wow.
And they had all worked 17-hour days, 7 days a week for 3 weeks to make that. And I remember going, no way, I am never doing that. Like, first of all, I can't physically, I know I can't. And that didn't sound like fun. Seriously. I have grandkids to play with. I have a husband, I have cats, I have all this stuff. So that's really the masculine way. And it does work for some people. I don't think it's working today as well as it did back then. Some of the insider stories I hear, I don't think it's working as well. So that's lower energy masculine. Now, here's what happens. Lower energy feminine becomes very manipulative, right? And she's sneaky and gets her needs met sneakily. When we tap into our divine feminine and we are in that higher energy vibration, that's when it opens the door for creativity. It's a slower pace as well. I mean, the feminine unveils. The feminine doesn't like ramp up and go. The feminine works in cycles. So there's low energy times that we need to respect, and there's high energy times. We just had a big freaking full moon, blood moon, flower moon thing.
Right.
That's a really high energy time, right? That's a great time for us to do a little bit of push. But with the masculine, bully masculine, it'll just keep pushing out of that when we go into the new moon, which is the time for us to look inward, to do more self-care, to do more rest, right? So in the feminine, that's where we are. We're really listening to our body. We're listening to source energy. We're listening to our highest selves, and we're following these patterns of what is good for us. Now, this is what's really cool. Masculine energy is designed to support feminine energy. So when we move ourselves into this higher feminine, which to some people sounds like she's not doing anything but sitting and oming, which is where we start. We sit and we go into meditation, we go inside, we connect. But what happens is that then brings along the masculine and helps the masculine raise its vibration. And then the masculine comes in and says, okay, divine feminine, how do we put this in action? What do you want me to do? Shall we do webinars? No. Shall we do Facebook Lives? And the energy that is created from being in the high vibration, it has to be released somehow, because there's the energy, and that's where the masculine can take that energy and put it into place, so that the things that you did before that were push and grind now happen with ease. You get them done faster. They bring in greater results because you're in a higher vibration.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know when I get that way, it does. That's sort of when you can say that you get into that flow, when things come along, move a lot more smoothly because you feel good. Number one, I think and because as you say, when you're trying to push, that's what leads to burnout. It certainly leads to a lot of stress, not only just emotional stress, but even stress on the body. And then that just cascades into more things, more issues. And then you're not able to work as even, this accident that you had, I suspect was probably the universe's way of saying, stop. You need to
stop. Listen.
Yeah.
They actually said to me at one point, I was tapping into my guides, and they were like, we can send an airplane to fall on you. Like, are you gonna listen, or do you want an airplane? I was like, no, I'll listen. Please don't drop an airplane on me.
Yes, that's a little too much
Yeah.
hard work. Yeah, absolutely. And now this is something that I've experienced, and I wonder is this something that maybe you teach your clients to do as well, is to start paying attention to like signs and synchronicities. Because for me, the last 2 days I was in a coaching program, and yesterday their money mindset thing was all about visualization. And then today I happened to get partway into a talk where he was talking about visualization. I'm like, okay, universe, I guess you're telling me that I haven't been visualizing enough lately. I need to get back to it, don't I? It's like, so is that something that you have found even in your own life? And then is that something that you teach your clients about as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of use that rule of 3. So if something pops up for me 3 times, so like I live at the edge of wilderness. I mean, and literally 3 steps outside my patio starts this huge acreage of Bureau of Land Management land. So I live on the edge of wilderness. So I see deer, I see lots of possums, and we have lots of rabbits. But if I see 3 rabbits, I'm like, ooh, okay, rabbit magic, right? What is rabbit magic? And rabbit is really about being tender with your heart, right? It's part of rabbit magic. So I'll be like, okay, rabbit, what do you have to tell me? And sometimes I will just pull out my book, Animal Speak, and I'll look, but sometimes I'll actually go into a meditation and I'll ask the spirit of rabbit to come. I teach that to some of my clients, right? There's so much that I can't do it with everybody, but I do teach that to some of my clients. And I always take the book with me when I'm on retreat with my clients, because man, we can really call in a lot. I also, there's this way of listening to the world. So there's a tapping in, and there's also a paying attention, because source, the universe, God, whatever your language is, really wants us to live a vibrant, juicy, amazing life. And so source does everything it can to support that. And for some people, it's really about being meditative and tapping in that way. For some people, it's about paying attention to nature, paying attention to what's out there. And so it really depends on the person, like, what is the way that you listen best? I have taught, there's this great thing called an animal walk that I have taught at my retreats, and that I'll use sometimes, not always, but it's really a way of tapping into Mama Earth when you're out on Mama Earth and you place your feet deliberately. Have you ever done an animal walk?
No.
Oh, it's great. So you start by placing your feet deliberately, and you begin to notice the energy that comes up. And it's kind of slower. It's not one of those fast hikes,
Right.
because you're placing your feet deliberately. And then I'll hold my hands out like this, and just feel into the energy. And you can start to feel, oh, that would be the energy of the earth. Okay, now you can feel, oh, the energy of the rocks, the grandfathers. And that feels different than the energy coming off the trees. And then you can begin to feel the animals that are around. And it's really, when you're in that neutral state of what will come to you. We were in Yosemite one day and called a little black bear. So what we have, we have little black bears up there in Yosemite. And I was like shocked because energy, and it was big energy. And I was like, okay, big energy, beaver. Yeah, beaver. My brain is trying to control it, but the energy was just there, and came around the corner and there was the bear. My husband was so excited to see a bear. And I was just feeling it, and the energy, bear energy, is just fascinating. So, that's the kind of stuff you can do when you're really connected to the earth. And I do teach that when I go on retreats. I'll have my clients go out and do animal walks and tap in that way.
Very cool. And I was doing some research on you, and of course, and I know one of the things I downloaded actually you've got a free ebook, I think, on your website, and I noticed that you talk about, you mentioned that that you're or something about the essence of a witch, and I was wondering if you could comment about that, and what did you mean by that when you were talking about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, part of that is acknowledging some of my past lives. So I actually had experience both as a witch and a nun. My soul, not me, Julie, but the soul that inhabits this body has been through that. But I really think being a witch is about tapping in to our nature, and our nature as being created of source energy. Therefore, we are source energy. Tapping into that in order to create what our soul desires, not our ego desires, but our soul desires. And it looks like magic, right? Really, it's ancient technology, but it looks like magic. And so for me, the witch has a couple of things. Number one, it's our state as creators, and how do we create? Like, I'm creating a new kitchen right now, which is why I can't be in my office because it's too loud. The other part of that is that as women, we carry in us, and most of us carry this ancestral blanket just from the gender of what happens to powerful women. Powerful women get thrown in the river to see if they float. They get burned at the stake because they've been outspoken. Ancient healers who, worked with herbs and were midwives, they got thrown in jail for being witches. And so we all carry this kind of ancestral warning that says, don't be too loud, don't be too visible, don't be too powerful. That's what got you dead last time. That's what got your sisters dead. And so another part of this witch is to be able to acknowledge that that's our history, and we are not going to allow that to stop us. So it's healing that ancestral wound so that we as women can stand out. We can become visible. We can boldly, and you still see it.
Mhm.
Like, what's the criticism of women on podcasts? Vocal fry. Now, Ira Glass has as much vocal fry as I do, but women get criticized for it. Even in the staff of This American Life, when they get criticisms, it's the women's voices that they don't like. They don't get criticism of the story. They get criticism of the way the woman's voice sounds,
Wow.
right? Because they're letting their voices out there in the world. What, if you look at whether you believe, whether you were a fan or not, Hillary Clinton, she was criticized for being a woman daring to run for power.
Yeah.
Now, take out all the politics and you just look at what's being said about women. Powerful women get more criticism than powerful men. And they get it in more obscene, demeaning ways. And so while we're healing our past, we also have to acknowledge that that's part of our present.
Yeah.
And we need to have the fortitude that comes from our connection to knowing that what is coming out of our mouth comes from source, right? And you only get that when you're tapped in and connected. You don't get that from being in your ego.
That's for sure. Yeah. I've been spending a little too much time in my ego of late. And so I'm working on connecting back again, which leads me to my next question. Is someone listening to this, a woman out there, and they're really, resonating with this, but they're also like, okay, where do I start? How do I start being able to, even just maybe not even yet even healing, but just to really just to be able to start focusing in on honoring the feminine in myself? What would you say to them?
So the first thing, the simplest thing, is to pay attention to your breath. Breath brings us home to the present. Breath brings us home to who we are. And I say this because most women don't have time to spend an hour a day in meditation right now, right? But you do have time to take 3 deep breaths. And then the next thing would be to connect with Mama Earth. Mama Earth is so healing and so powerful. And I will say to my clients, have you stood on the ground today? Like, have you been outside and consciously stood on the ground and notice how you are supported? Notice how she sustains us. Notice how she keeps us here with gravity, right? Just noticing and feeling that. And then you can go into the other practices. Then you can go into the practice of connecting with your highest self, who walks the spirit planes and communicates with you. Then you can connect in with your spirit guides or your record keepers in the Akashic records. Then you can begin to talk to the energy of money and learn how to open yourself to receive more money. Let's start with your breath and then start with connection. And literally those two things, breath and connection, 5 minutes a day. And start there.
I love that. And that is something that we can all find time to do. Because 5 minutes, because you're right. So many people, I've talked to either clients or potential clients, they're like, because I definitely love meditation. It's a big part of my life, but I know they're like, oh, I don't like to meditate, or I don't want to be, I can't imagine sitting. And I'll tell them sometimes, well, then just go outside, like you're even saying, just go outside and be in nature for a few minutes. But yeah, just take 5 minutes and three deep breaths. We can definitely do that. You could do that standing in line at the supermarket, for heaven's sakes.
And I love guided meditations. So I have a bunch of guided meditations, but I don't do the empty your mind thing. I've been doing this for 30 some odd years, and I still can't do the empty your mind thing. So meditation doesn't have to look the way you think it has to look. You do what works for you. My husband says he meditates when he swims because it's just his body moving and he can empty his mind.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
When I swim, I'm like counting how many laps I have to go before I can get out of the pool.
Yeah, I don't think that's meditation.
No.
But I like, and I think that is important, because I know sometimes I do think men sometimes struggle with it as well, because they, and again, it's part of some of their masculine energy as it is, and to think that they have to stop. But I love how your husband has realized that he could be swimming, and that becomes his mindful practice when he's just able to just glide through the water. That's so cool.
Yeah.
What really does get you excited about the work that you do with women?
Wow, that story that made me emotional, that question. I lived for 20 years in an abusive relationship. And I didn't leave because I didn't think that I could make enough money to keep my kids safe and to support my kids. And so I have this mission for women to have money, because when women have money, they have choice. They can choose to stay, they can choose to go. And then here's the other thing that I've discovered about women having money. When women have money, they make choices to make their lives better, which raises their vibration, which touches the vibration of the people around them and raises the vibration of the planet. I believe that when we are doing the work that our souls came here to do, and we are abundantly provided for, that's how we save the world. It's how we heal the planet, and that's how we heal each other, so that our children and our grandchildren can go to Africa and see elephants in the wild, can hike Yosemite and feel fresh air, clean air, right? And I'm in it for the littles. I'm in it for those people who are coming after us.
That's awesome. I love that. I think that's just about the best answer you could possibly give. So I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I take that.
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing I like asking this one sometimes, because I get really some interesting answers. So what are you curious about right now?
Oh, that's such a good question. Somebody Facebook friended me the other day, and she said that she had been doing numerology for 30 years and had found some codes to prosperity with numbers and our names. And I'm super curious about her work. I am super curious about, I'm getting ready to go to Costa Rica and check it out for future retreats. So I'm curious about that. And I'm really curious about what source will bring. Like I'm just starting a brand new group and I'm really curious about what I don't know. I set the container and then I don't know what's going to happen in the group, right? So I'm really curious about that.
Very cool. Well, I do know someone who has been to Costa Rica, and from what I hear, it's beautiful, and I'm sure you will find a place. And if you need any resources, she's held retreats there. I can also point you to some place. If you have trouble finding anything, I'd be happy to share that with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my photographer regularly goes down there with another coach for retreats. So she's a good resource too, but I will keep that in mind.
All right, excellent. I have really enjoyed this discussion because I knew I would. And I'm sure that folks out there listening have gotten a lot of value out of it as well. And if they would like to learn more about you and the work that you're doing, what is the best place for people to go check you out?
The very best place, or I think the very best place, is for them to join me in my Facebook group, which is Feminine Business Magic. We do a ton of great fun stuff in the Facebook group, including we brag on Wednesdays. And bragging is such an important thing to be able to do. First of all, to acknowledge your own brilliance. So it's very healing. But also, if you're going to market your business, you better learn to brag about yourself. Because that's a big part of it. So that's a great way to get in touch. You can also listen to the Art of Feminine Business podcast on iTunes and Spotify. And I think the team has got me on all those other podcast places.
Right.
And then my website is juliefoucht.com.
All right. Excellent. Well, I'll be sure and have all of that information in the show notes. So for those of you who are listening somewhere where you don't have a pen in hand, not to worry, go to liveloveengagepodcast.com and find this episode, and then you'll be able to get all of that information. So thank you so much for being with us. And I'm glad that you were able to, find an alternate location while your kitchen gets remodeled. So that's cool. So really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's really been fun.
Yeah. And I appreciate all of you out there who are listening and watching. And if you did enjoy this episode, I hope that you will share it with a friend and make sure that you are subscribed if you're not already on all the wonderful podcast platforms. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.